Good morning and welcome to the Department of Family and Support Services Area Plan Legal Assistance Services RFP webinar. Just a few housekeeping rules. Due to the volume of participants, everyone has been placed on mute. Please submit questions via the questions box and we'll respond to questions at the midpoint and end of the presentation. Please use the questions box to notify us of any technical issues. This webinar is being recorded, and anything stated at this webinar is not intended to change the solicitation document. Any changes will be in writing in the form of an addendum issued by the Department of Family and Support Services. The purpose of this webinar is to provide information for the solicitation. A copy of the recording will be posted on a DFSS YouTube channel with a link to the recording on chicago.gov under the alerts and or funding opportunities tabs. Please give this up to 5 business days to upload. DFSS retains the right to share a list of registrants to this webinar along with their contact and organizational information at our discretion. At this time, I would like to introduce Karen Cole, which is the manager of the Division of Senior Services.
Thank you. Hi, Jillian. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to launch this request for proposals or RFP for our legal assistance services through the area plan. As you can see, we have a lot to cover today. We want to make sure that you have time for questions and asking anything that you need. And so let's go ahead and get started if you're ready, Jillian. Are you ready for me to kick it off?
Sure, yes.
Excellent. Okay, so as you just saw, there is, can you just go back one slide? I'm sorry, Jill. Let's go back and just,
yes.
So here's the RFP. Okay, everybody should receive the link in the email that I sent. This is also available on the city's procurement website for you to look at individually, which is of course where you would do all of your application and such. And so please look out for this. It also, as I said, was attached to the email. Okay, next slide. So what is the Legal Assistance Services RFP? Well, quite simply put, legal assistance is our legal protections to support older adults within the city of Chicago. And so, of course, the senior services is what's called the Area Agency on Aging within the city of Chicago. And to that end, we are one of 13 area agencies on aging throughout the state of Illinois. And what we do in this capacity is we utilize money that is designated by the Older Americans Act of 1965. And we use those monies to ensure that the wide variety of services and supports that are needed for older Chicagoans are met. And the idea between having the AAAs or the area agencies on aging is that services need to reflect local needs. And so the Area Agency on Aging is housed within the city of Chicago's government structure. And to that end, our services for the legal assistance RFP is citywide. Okay. And so again, we want to help older adults to access their long-term care options and other community-based services. And the goal is, of course, to protect older people against direct challenges to their independence, choice, and financial security, utilizing legal services. And while every Chicagoan over age 60 is eligible for these services, we really privilege those with economic or social needs. So we know very much that having those legal supports ensures that older adults have the ability to remain independent in their homes and communities and have the best choice and autonomy for as long as possible. Next slide, please. So what you can see here is a little bit of background about the program itself, and you'll see this table at the top that lists the number of clients that we're seeing in 22, 23, 24, and of course, this 2025 is only half of the year. So what you'll see is that the number of clients that we serve and the number of units is, it's about the same amount annually, but it is going up. And of course, we anticipate that given the challenges that older adults are faced with right now, that there are likely to be additional legal needs that folks have. So we are really looking for proposals from organizations within the city of Chicago to provide these services. And again, as I said, the funds are through the Older Americans Act and the Illinois Department on Aging. The money goes from the federal government to the Illinois Department on Aging and then out to the different AAAs throughout the state. And the services are wide reaching, and that is one of the beautiful things about this program is that people can do everything from just call with questions for correspondence they may have received or concerns they might have and get a legal opinion, and going all the way up to getting counseling, going to court, preparing briefs after. So really, it's kind of a soup to nuts program. And then, of course, to that end, we do want it to be popular. And so it also does include community education and outreach. Okay. So you can see here that previous funding was $173,000, almost $174,000. And in FY26, there's an $80,000 increase. And of course, that's contingent upon funding, but for FY26, it will be the 253,598. And that is to cover additional services that are required for individuals in long-term care services in addition to the existing supports. So as you can see here, that the general legal questions can be answered. There can just be financial counseling provided, information on reverse mortgage and foreclosure, guardianship, and so forth. So again, our webinar today is really to highlight and illustrate some parts of the RFP. So of course, you want to read the entire RFP when you are preparing for your submission for this program. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, so here's your, according to statute, from the Older Americans Act, what is included into legal assistance services. And really, the program also defends seniors from age and other forms of discrimination, as well as protection from abuse, exploitation, coercion, and violations of the Nursing Home Reform Act and the ADA, Americans with Disabilities. Because of the type of law that this is, there is, pardon me, a limitation that the program does not handle fee generating cases. So there's no personal injury, there's no workman's comp or criminal cases. This is really limited to the programs that are outlined in the RFP. So non-criminal legal matters, public entitlement, housing, healthcare, involuntary discharge, guardianship, consumer fraud, employment, family law, property interests, advanced planning. In fact, the top three areas where people frequently use services historically have always been housing. And of course, that really peaked after COVID when the eviction moratorium was dropped. Housing has always been a big issue, tenants issues, and so on. And then also advanced planning, healthcare powers of attorney, financial powers of attorney, other things like that. And then also some of the civil matters. Those may be debt relief. Those may be helping to apply for Medicare. There's a wide variety there that are highlighted at length in the RFP. So you can see here in the final bullet, people may have questions about taxes. Reverse mortgages are always a bit contentious, and so people need assistance on that. There may be guardianship if needed, and so on. Next slide. Okay. And it feels a little bit repetitive here, but we have to make sure that it's very clear that this is a broad-based program with direct representation of seniors in a wide variety of matters. It is not designed for fee generating cases such as personal injury, workman's comp, or criminal cases. And the expectation, of course, is that the selected respondent would refer those to an outside source. But what the activities do included are listed here. And so that includes intake, interview, and clarification of the questions, legal research on behalf of the client, education concerning their rights, including, as I stated earlier, the community education and outreach, advocacy to ensure that their rights are upheld and the benefits to which they are eligible they receive, and then, of course, representation in court and the briefs after is needed. Next slide. So how are units of service calculated? Which of course has a direct correlation to how do you bill? So 1 unit of service is an hour of service by staff people working on the case on behalf of an individual. That can include counseling, travel time, research, case preparation, and completion. And please keep in mind that that is with the professionals that are identified within the RFP. So it could be an attorney, it could be a paralegal, and there's a wide variety of folks who can use time which is compensated for this. And then, of course, the presentations that we've spoken about. Everything should be reported in monthly reports to DFSS. We use a platform called Aging IS, which is something that the AAA at large uses. And then we also ask for an additive report that details the breakdown of the type of services that are received, the number that were accepted, the number of new clients, the type of cases that they are, and so on. We also ask for a case study example quarterly. And then if someone is exceeding 75 hours or units of service, then we ask that the delegate that is selected obtain permission from the DFSS program manager, then correspondingly the deputy commissioner before additional units of service are provided. And that is because, of course, there's a limited number of units of service and we want to ensure that everybody has access to our legal supports through the Older Americans Act. Next slide. Okay, this is kind of a small slide. I was trying to fit in a lot here. And of course, all of this is detailed in the RFP, but some things that I just want to make sure that attendees understand is that all clients have to be referred for services through our information and assistance unit, and they can either call us, or what can happen is there can be direct referrals that go to the selected respondent directly. However, those need to be circled back to with the city of Chicago and submitted into our system so that we have documentation of the services and supports that people are receiving. So that's detailed there. Also, the respondent the cases should be in 3 different priority levels, and the response correspondingly should be within that area. Emergency referral, urgent referral, and standard referrals with the response and support of that individual falling within the priority criteria and timelines for seeing and assisting that individual as dictated in the definitions. And then finally, there also has to be a standardized intake tool, which gathers all of the information that's required and establishes that legal assistance is appropriate for the individual and a plan on how those issues will be resolved. And if someone is deemed inappropriate, of course, the delegate agency would provide referral information for an alternative agency or source to be able to better meet those needs. Next slide, please. Oh, excuse me, I should say also that if things are seen internally, those need to be documented as well. That's that last sentence there. Internal referrals to other respondent programs should be tracked for reporting to DFSS. So for example, if the selected respondent has their older Chicagoans program, and the individual doesn't qualify under that program, but they refer them to an internal program, that information needs to be tracked so that we are able to capture the services where individuals initially came through in the older adult program. Next slide. Thank you, Jill. Okay, so other requirements that you do want to pay attention to that are within the RFP is there has to be a screening screening process and protocol. There also needs to be a protocol for case determination. There has to be a protocol for grievance processes and satisfaction surveys. Those are also measured in the metrics that we'll discuss later. All Older Americans Act programs have to have the opportunity for clients to provide a voluntary contribution for their services. So no one is ever denied services because they don't want to contribute. However, it is written into our guidance from our funder that everybody should have the opportunity to contribute. So there needs to be a process for that, again, outlined in the RFP. And the way that that happens is any client contributions will be documented and tabulated and then taken out of the payment to the selected respondent. Cross-service coordination. We recognize that the needs of older adults and their caregivers will always fall outside of the range of supports of one particular RFP, in this instance, legal services. So if someone is at explaining to you all that a loved one took money without their permission, we would expect that you would contact us and or Adult Protective Services and make a referral for that individual with their willingness and agreement. There is, of course, client attorney privilege, but other things might be if someone has an impending eviction, we would want you to contact us and say, hey, this person's at risk of eviction. We're working with the landlord now, and this is just an example I'm making up, but can you please let the Cook County, I want to put them in touch with case management so someone can actually sit and meet with them and help them to determine what their housing supports and opportunities are, and further to actually tap into those resources as needed. So again, cross-service coordination just means we know that people's needs in general are greater than the particular scope of an RFP. And our expectation is certainly that we work together to meet the entire holistic needs of the individual. I've mentioned a number of times also, there is an expectation that outreach and education is provided to the community at large. A lot of people don't know about these services. We're constantly in senior services working to ensure that people know and understand what is available to them so that they access those services and supports. What we know is that people age better when they do advanced planning, when they access these services before they need them, not, when the water is rising, if you will. Another important and essential component is background checks. And these have to be done every 3 years by the delegate agency. And it's everyone from a volunteer to a clerical staff person, to an attorney, to a paralegal, anybody who sees any confidential information of the individual or has access to those databases. And so we're very specific, please check the RFP. There has to be a fingerprint criminal background check that looks at FBI and the state databases. There has to be exclusionary list checks done. So the IG, the Illinois sex offender, the Illinois Department of Corrections sex offender, the Department of Corrections wanted fugitive search engine, and the National Sex Offender Public Registry. And then, of course, the Adult Protective Services Registry, which Senior Services can assist you with, because these are vulnerable older adults, and they might not always be vulnerable, but people who seek out and prey on older adults some are quite unscrupulous in their approaches. And so we do have to really make sure background checks are done. It's crucial and essential. It can be put into your budget to start, but it has to be in your first budget. So make sure you pay attention to that. Next slide, please. All right, target population. Who are we serving? So again, Chicagoans age 60 and above and or their informal caregivers. So what we see frequently happen is that the mother says, daughter's taking care of mom. The daughter says, I need a power of attorney for healthcare so I can help my mom if she goes into the hospital. That may be true. The identified client is the older adult, and so the older adult has to request these services. What we have seen happen in the past is that the adult child says, my parent needs these services, and then they go to get the services, and the legal services provider calls the older adult, and the older adult says, we have no idea what you're talking about. So, or I have no idea what you're talking about. So it's really important that it is stressed and ensured that the older adult is the identified client, 60 and better, especially those in the greatest economic and social need. So with the Older Americans Act, again, it is open to people, Chicagoans age 60 and better in the greatest, I'm sorry, it's everyone is eligible. However, our focus is those with the greatest economic need, the greatest social need, those at risk of institutionalization, those with low income English proficiency, and also low income older adults. Next slide, please, Jillian. Excellent, thank you. Okay, additional information on eligibility in the screening process. And again, some of this is repetitive, but the RFP as a whole spells out everything, and then this is just pieces of it. So again, people come, in general, they contact our information and assistance unit. We widely promote legal services. You can see, for example, we do a Chicago Seniors Connected quarterly newsletter that goes out with many programs and supports. And right here is the legal services for older adults, right? And so we promote these widely, and people's eyes always get wide when they hear that there's legal services and supports that are available. So in general, people come through INA. However, there are many that also will go directly to the delegate agency. And so we do want to make sure that those are documented. And then, of course, because this is a citywide contract, legal services are provided citywide. There should be fair access. And then the services can be provided from the office remotely, or however the client needs dictates. It might be they want to meet in a senior center. They might not want someone to come to their home. And that the respondent also has to demonstrate the capacity to provide services irrespective of primary language, including those who utilize sign language, and there must be reasonable accommodations for individuals with disabilities. Next slide, please. Okay, so how are you measured? So we have a range of performance goals and outcomes that we look at. Also, one suggestion is that if you have other ideas and metrics that you would like to submit that you think would be good to look at or interesting to look at, please submit those. But in general, we want to see the satisfaction survey where 80% of people said that their situation was improved by their work with the delegate. Now, we recognize sometimes people reach out for assistance when, the horse is out of the barn or it's past when they can get support. So not everybody's going to be able to be helped, but we do want the satisfaction survey to show that they have satisfaction. And they felt less overwhelmed by their legal issues, and further, that there was overall satisfaction with services provided. And remember, as I said previously, there is a need to have a process for client grievances, which should be outlined in your RFP. So then also we want to look at other metrics that include that 100% of the emergency referrals are responded to within the designated time frame, and that 100% of the clients who are deemed to be eligible will receive the services to which they are eligible. And we want to really illustrate the number of cases that have positive and desirable outcomes, the number of referrals that you send to other internal programs, and then also what's going to outside legal service providers. And again, this goes back, when you look at the RFP, you'll see that DFSS is really seeking to capture the program impact Beyond what is just numbers and metrics, we want to be able to illustrate the stories of the older adults that are assisted by this program. And to that end, it is crucial that we have the wide variety of both the quantitative and the qualitative data that tells that story. Next slide, please. Okay, community involvement. Okay, we're moving on to the selection criteria. And again, these are the criteria that are adhered to as far as how your application is scored. And so you're looked at in a broad variety of categories, community involvement, performance, the strength of your program. Those are all illustrated below and in depth in the RFP. But for community involvement, we want to make sure that the respondent understands the target population, both the strengths and the deficits that they might have. So not just where things are challenging, but also some of the strengths that they have. That of course the respondent has capabilities to work with our population and mechanisms to incorporate client feedback and suggestions. And then also that the leadership is reflective of the community being served. Next slide, please. We also look at the organizational capacity. So do you understand the target population as dictated previously? Do you have the capabilities to serve that population? And then also that the leadership is reflective. Next. We look at the strength of the program. So they clearly define the legal services that are provided, that are appropriate to address the variety of legal services that are indicated with this RFP. That there is a best practice or strong national or local evidence base for the services that you're providing and the way that you're doing them. We want to make sure that you have the experience and capacity to implement the ideas that you have. So that should be really highlighted in your RFP. Again, that understanding of the needs and data always helps, so feel free to add some data. And that you also have an effective approach to engaging and retaining participants. So you can have the best program in the world, but if you cannot effectively engage with your target population or program participants, no one's going to use it. Next. Okay, performance management and outcomes. We look at the past performance, of course, against outcome goals and performance metrics, as well as accomplishments in providing services to the target population. We look to see if you have experience using data to inform and sometimes pivot services. In the ideal situation, the way that we provide services, the analysis of it should inform how we make pivots. And at DFSS, we use something called active contract management. And this is a system of working with delegates where we really try to look at both the expectations of the program, the data, and then what is happening in real time. And we work together concurrently through monthly or quarterly meetings where we talk about the program, we identify any exceptional ways that the program is being successful, but also talk through unanticipated challenges or challenges in performance so that we can identify those along the way and work together collaboratively to reach a strategy to overcome those challenges. So active contract management is working together throughout the term of the contract, not just saying you get the contract, here's your services, and then at the end we're gonna look at how you did. That's not how it's going to work. It is a collaborative process. So to that end, we want to make sure that you have the systems and processes needed to collect and store key data. Also, they need to be confidential. That is detailed, and that you have the processes that are needed to track and report the performance. Next slide. Okay, we want, of course, your cost to be reasonable. You have to have an acceptable budget justification, and it's always helpful to see funds being leveraged to support a program. So do you have the fiscal capacity to implement the proposed program? And there is some specific questions about This is a program that is reimbursed in arrears. And so the respondent also has to have the ability to, for a few months while everything is being put in place, to actually bill the city of Chicago and then wait for payment. So you will be asked to detail that, that you're able to leverage other funds and in-kind contributions to support the overall program, and those can come from any type of supports. And then that also that your implementation costs are reasonable and the funding request is relative to what we may anticipate from the city of Chicago. Finally, that the budget supports the scope of work. Next. And then, okay, this is the final part. Pardon me. There's opportunities to attach reports or studies or documentations or best practices. We encourage you to do so. There's also the ability to attach the resumes for your key staff. It is requested. Please don't forget that. Do it. If you do not have the staff on staff already with resumes, then you want to submit the position description for them. And then, of course, you have to make sure that your budget for the program is submitted. And please look carefully at the program requirements. We want to see a successful application, and so we really want to kind of help you to navigate around any hiccups that you may anticipate. Let's see the next slide. So, as stated previously, we're going to score you based on those criteria that are at length in the RFP, but we briefly went over during this presentation. And unfortunately, if you submit an incomplete proposal or you don't respond to all requirements, then your RFP will not be read. So please make sure that you carefully look at all of those things, because you could have the most remarkable RFP in the world. And if we can't look at it because you have not responded to all requirements, it's problematic. Of course, our commissioner, upon review, can look at the recommendation and make changes based on the recommendations that we make. And then also we as the city and as the area agency on aging have to ensure that the services are available citywide and are provided in a linguistically and culturally appropriate manner. Next slide. Okay, here's your timeline, and Jillian's going to go more into this, but today is our webinar, and this is available should you wish to listen to it again and again. It will be online and available. We will give you 2 days to submit your questions about the RFP, and we will put out an amendment in response to that. So you only have until Thursday to do those. So please make sure that you formulate any questions and submit them ASAP. And it is due on August 28th, not at 5 o'clock, not at midnight, but at noon. So please start early, save often, and make sure you're doing all of that beforehand. And again, this program begins October 1st. So in a short while, and this is on the federal fiscal year. So of course, that starts October 1st, 2025, but is for the FY26 year. It goes from October 1 till September 30. And it is a 3-year grant with an additional renewal year. Next slide. Oh, I said what I was going to say here. So 3 years, 1 potential renewal year. The amount of the RFP has gone up $253,598. And the administrative cap is 15% for the program. And of course, many organizations have federal indirect rates, and those can be submitted, and you want to attach that letter, but the percent that the federal government says that you can charge is not guaranteed. So for example, we cannot have an indirect rate be 80% of the contract because we would not be able to afford to provide services. So your budget should be for 1 year of services. Sometimes people submit a 3-year budget. No, we just want it to be for 1 year. And then the cost category definitions are included. And really think through when you're doing your budget, what do you need to have in there? Do you need some travel money? Do you need to go to a conference? And really apply your program's actual costs. And again, remember that I said that your first year background checks can be put into your budget. And we cannot give you more money than what you ask. And in general, the amount of money that is available, that 253598 number, is the maximum that grant that will be awarded. And really think about the reasonable costs and how you can state the case about everything being appropriate for the cost you're asking and what's in the budget. Okay, next slide. And is this you or is this me, Jill? I'm happy to talk about it.
This is you.
Okay, so we do see mistakes in budgets. They happen. It's people are human. But so for fringes, we want you to check your calculation. If your fringe is, 17%, make sure you're doing 17%, not 27%. Supplies, just be realistic about what supplies you need. Client assistance, so make sure your titles and your job description uploads all have the same title. Make sure that your resume, if you link, this is the person who will have this role, that it is this resume for this role, and you can just include that within the RFP. And so there also is a page in the budget where it talks about what that position does. Use the appropriate column and then also show your match. A match is not required for this program, but matches are always a way that people seek to have their applications stand out from others. Next slide. Okay, again, August 28th at noon. That is on a Thursday, Central Time, not noon in Hawaii, in Chicago. Thank you. I think that's it for me. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yes.
All right, Jill. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you, Karen.
Of course, I will remain here. Please feel free to ask questions. You can put them in the chat. That's always helpful for us so we can see them as we go. Oh, maybe they're in the Q&A.
Yeah, we do have 3 questions. I was gonna.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want me to order those, answer those real quick? I can.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so what is the asterisk on year 2025? Great question. Of course, we're not through with the year 2025. So if you were to look at the RFP, you would see that it says this is calculated based on a partial year statistic for 2025. Okay, can you speak more to what report studies or other documentation are expected? Yes, this goes back to the best practices that we recommend. And of course, organizations also develop best practices within their area of expertise. And so if you have research studies that show what's a best practice, if you have something put out by the National Association of Elder Law Attorneys that jives with the approach that you are suggesting in your RFP, attach that. If you did a study based on a program that you did, attach it. All of these things to seek to illustrate and bring to life the submission that you are requesting. I see one more question from Noah. Can DFSS provide guidance on where in Title IIIB of the Older Americans Act or in the statutes allows for indirect costs to be capped? For example, if a delegate agency has a federally negotiated indirect cost rate. That is a good question. That would not be I will say this, I don't believe it's in the Older Americans Act. I believe it's within the city of Chicago documentation that is attributed to that. So I'm happy to answer that in the amendments. This is why it's helpful to have everything written down, and those will be sent out to all of the folks who have actually attended the webinar and signed up for this. So when you go through iSupplier and you're working on your submission, when the amendment is put up, you will have to indicate that you have read and understand the amendment. And please get those questions to us by Thursday, because if you don't get them there, we cannot reply to them. So, Jill, did I get all that right?
You did.
Okay, good. I'm going to hand it over to my fabulous colleague, Jill, who's going to take it from here. And this is a very important section because it's the nuts and bolts about how you apply. So thank you again. Continue to put your questions in the chat, please, or in the question and answer.
Thank you, Karen. As far as application tips, the most important tip that we can provide is to start your application as early as possible and to save it often. And if you have never done business with the City of Chicago, please register into iSupplier, also known as eProcurement, ASAP. Please review the RFP narrative and application questions closely. Remember that they align with the scope and the selection criteria. Please use the information in the RFP for guidance in formulating your answers. There is a 4,000 character limit, which includes punctuation and spaces. Each response is allotted 4,000 characters. Please try not to use the back button on your browser. You could potentially lose your work. And again, we can't stress this enough to start your application as early as possible and to save it as often as possible. Just a couple tips for working in e-procurement. To submit multiple applications for a single RFP, applicants will need to set up a unique user account in iSupplier. The e-procurement system is not capable of submitting more than one distinct proposal per associated email address. Therefore, you must use a separate email address for each submission. You can submit your application and later amend it up until the due date, which is August 28th, 2025 at 12 noon. Avoid the rush and mishaps by submitting early. Plan on submission taking approximately 30 to 60 minutes. Please be advised that late applications cannot be accepted. For assistance, please make use of the e-procurement hotline at 312-744-4357. They also can be reached via email at customersupport@cityofchicago.org. Please note that the hotline operates during business hours only, which is Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And again, try to submit your application as early as you can and to save it often while you're working on it. As far as agency requirements, we require agencies to provide articles of incorporation and any amended articles of incorporation. We also require an IRS affirmation letter from non-for-profit agencies only. This letter must be dated within 60 days of your submission. You can obtain this letter by calling the IRS directly at 1-877-829-5500. If you are a for-profit agency, please submit your original letter from the IRS showing your FEIN number. Your UEI number is also required in addition to your central contractor registration, which can be obtained from the entity overview page on the sam.gov website. And lastly, a certificate of good standing letter with the state of Illinois is required. As of April of last year, we have a new labor peace agreement ordinance, which will apply to all DFSS and CDPH delegates that have 20 or more employees working for their organization. The only exemption is our hospitals. Contractor must provide written notice to the commissioner or her designee within 72 hours of becoming aware that employees want to organize or that a union seeks to represent employees. You may ask, what is an LPA? An LPA, also known as a labor peace agreement, is an agreement between an employer and a labor union that ensures that the organizing drive is not impacted by union busting techniques, including employee retaliation. And in return, they will not strike or stop work in a way that will impact human services. For technical assistance, there is a link to the RFP of interest and training documents under the alert section on our website. For questions on registration and e-procurement technical assistance for delegate agencies, please reach out to customer support at cityofchicago.org. And they also can be reached at the help desk. The number is 312-744-4357. As far as training materials, we do have documents and videos on the City of Chicago .org website under online training materials. At this time, we're gonna delve into how to enter your responses and accepting any amendments that will be published. Step 1, you select Create Quote from the drop-down menu in the Actions box and then click on Go. This will take you to the application page where you can get started. If the RFP you are interested in has been amended, you will need to acknowledge and accept that amendment to start or submit your response. And to accept the amendment, click on View Amendment History, circled here. To begin the acceptance and acknowledgement process, please follow these steps after clicking View Amendment History. First, you click on the document number. Next, click on the infinity or eyeglass icon to review the amended changes to the RFP. Next, you click on the Acknowledge Amendments button to acknowledge receipt and understanding of the changes to proceed. And by acknowledging the amendment, you are indicating that you are aware of the changes made to the amendment. When you get to this screen, you click on the I accept checkbox and then you click on Acknowledge. Then you click on Yes to indicate you confirm your acknowledgement of the amendment. Finally, you click on the checkbox that you accept the terms and conditions, and then you click on Accept to accept the terms and conditions. And this is the final step in acknowledging and accepting the amendment. Once you accept the amendment, you can move forward with submitting your application, which is what we'll go through at this time. So when you are ready to submit your application, meaning that all required questions are answered to the best of your ability, that all uploads are in any required documents are uploaded, you start by saving your draft one last time and then you click continue. If you are missing information, iSupplier will give you an error message at the top of the page, which I think is extremely helpful. And that error message usually directs to something left undone in the application. So in the last example, the error message indicated that the lines found under the Lines tab had not been completed. So in the error message here, it says the RFQ control requires you to quote on all lines. So something was missing. It's indicating that something was missing. In this example, the error is about an unanswered question in the application or requirement section. The quote value refers to your, in this case, missing answer. So once your application is free from errors, everything has been completed and you are ready to proceed and submit. And at this point, clicking continue should put your application into the review and submit phase. When you get to this screen, this is like a summary page, and this is also your last chance to review all of your data and to confirm that everything is accurate. Please double check, triple check your attachments and your responses, and scroll down to the bottom of the screen to see all of your responses. And at the very bottom of the screen, you will be asked to provide an electronic signature. Please be sure to fill in that signature before checking the box. And the next step is to click submit. Once you submit your application, you will see a submission confirmation screen similar to the one on this slide. eProcurement will also send a confirmation email within 24 hours of your submission. However, if you just want peace of mind knowing that your submission has been received, you can always reach out to me and I can give you that assurance that we have received your application. And my name is Jillian Black. I can be reached at jillian.black@cityofchicago.org. So please feel free to send me a quick email. I can give you your receipt of your submission. And we're going to pause for more questions. And if you don't have any other questions at this time, you still have time to to ask your questions. The deadline is this Friday at 5 p.m. For programmatic questions, those could be sent to Karen Cole. Her information is listed on the screen.
So
And any-
Jill, just to make sure, I just want to make sure I have it right. So
Yes.
Thursday is when the deadlines are regarding the substance of the RFP. Things about like, how do I add an attachment,
Mhm,
which is about e-procurement,
mhm.
those can be asked past the deadline, but nothing
Yes,
that is substantively about what you might submit in your RFP or clarification, right?
correct.
Okay,
Correct.
good. Just want to make sure I had that right.
And so for any non-programmatic questions, so if you're having any technical issues, if you have any questions regarding e-procurement, those can be sent to the e-procurement hotline. They can be reached at 312-744-4357. And they also can be reached via email at customersupport@cityofchicago.org. I prefer email when you're starting right away. However, if you're at the deadline, if you're close to the deadline, maybe picking up the phone will probably be the best option. And you can also reach out to me. Again, my name is Jillian Black. I can be reached at jillian.black@cityofchicago.org. Before we close out, Karen, is there anything you want to add?
I prefer that you email me questions so that we have them in writing. Please put an exclamation point on it, and in the about line, put question related to RFP so that it stands out. I want to make sure everything gets responded to.
All right, thanks, Karen. And thank you to you all for attending this webinar for legal assistance for our seniors. And good luck on your applications, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jill. Thanks, everyone.